Hello, this is Starla Henderson with Fronter House Quilts blog. Today we are going to finish the Iris Marianne. We're going to do this last petal right here. So, here we go. Okay, just like the last petal that we did, this one right here, it is partially done on top of this piece that we put down in the very first video that I basted down. Now, I took the basting stitches out for that I first put in, and then basted this on top of all of it. And this is the most difficult part. Actually, it's easier than the last one, but that's what we're going to do today. It's just so that you can see what this will look like once it's already appliqued down. So here we go. And this one, when it's done, it's appliqued, the whole piece is appliqued all the way around. So I'm going to take out my basting stitch. I'm going to start right up here near where I want you to see. And I've already marked it just because it works better for my eyes. Well, I unthreaded my needle. Does that ever happen to you guys? Probably. That's the only part about handwork I don't like is trying to thread my needles. Okay. Needles threaded. Here we go. I've started this right here close to where I want to, of what I want to show you, burying that knot in the seam allowance. I'm going to take some of this out. It's still really cold here, so I'm a little clumsier than I normally would be. Everything's kind of sore and hurting. It's fibromyalgia. But it was a lot worse yesterday, so I'm happy today that I'm feeling some better. But it makes me a little bit slower and maybe a little more clumsy, so I apologize. Here we go. We're headed into the area that with all the seam allowances, so just make sure you're covering everything as you go through this. And I just turn a little bit at a time, making sure I'm covering up the seam allowance from from petal number 3, which we did yesterday, rather than the last video. I'm going to keep working my way around. And as you can see, before I turn any more, and I'm just going to leave that there because it anchors my piece, I'm going to have to clip because we're coming into an inside curve. And it's a real soft curve. And again, whenever you're clipping, you clip right up to the line, not into it. I mean, if you mess up and clip into it, it's not the worst thing you could do, but it's not going to be the exact shape that you were aiming for. Because sometimes those mistakes are happy accidents and you end up liking what you did, so just have to wait and see. I know I've done that before. Done something that, man, I go ahead and see what it looks like and think, well, I kind of like that after all. Keep on turning. And you can see the purple fabric that's underneath here. That's what we laid down, basted in place, just so we'd have it there. It's just easier to do your seam allowances that are coming up around it if you've got that there as kind of a visual guide. And it holds it where it needs to be. You don't have to worry about it later. And I've done this both ways. This is the easier way to do this. And I've almost got this part done. And two, as you're doing this, you know, this one might look a little different from another one, and that's okay. Don't worry about it if they're not exactly the same, because there are no two flowers or two anything to speak of in nature that occurs exactly the same over and over again. Nature, by definition, is usually random. And so that makes it easier for me if I can't get this exactly the way I wanted it or exactly the way it's drawn, and sometimes you can't, depending on the fabric you're working with, or like today, if my hands aren't completely cooperating with me, I may not make this exactly the way, but it's still pretty. It still looks good, and no one's going to know it but you. And it doesn't have to be exact because, again, nature's not exact. But that's the hard part right there, and that wasn't very hard. It's just a soft inside curve, and that's all there is to it. You're going to keep going the rest of the way around this, and I put this purple because it contrasts very well with the rest of this flower. You're going to go the rest of the way around and finish up here, and it's nothing but, mostly it's just an outside curve. There's another little bit of an inside dip right here, but it's real soft. And then that's all there is to the flower Marianne. And on the spring sampler that we did, I think there was two of these. There may have only been one. And there's a couple of them on my Esther bunny quilt. This is also a flower that I have used on some other quilts, which will be in my gallery here pretty soon. So this is another one of my favorite flowers, and you'll probably see it again. But anyway, that's how we applique the Iris Marianne. And we will be moving on to something different now. Thank you for joining me. This is Starla Henderson with Runner House Quilts.